said you do stuff, you ask things that aren't Googleable.
And that's why this podcast has become popular and successful. Is you're enjoying it and you're also benefiting from the knowledge that people are dropping.
When you have such a trip to travel over there, like how early do you leave to get acclimated with the time zone difference? Like when will you and your camp go over there to England?
So with UFC and like ideally we would get out there 10 to 12 days, but we don't have that. I don't think Cage Warriors necessarily has that budget. So I'm going to leave here Sunday, get there Monday, which will be 5 days out from the event. And I'm okay with that. You know, I there's no excuses. I'm doing everything right. I just got some compression pants from a coach. I have the Normatec boots that I'm going to do right when we get there. I've been researching like right when I'm there, if I can be in the sunlight as much as possible and then just absolutely darkness at night, that's going to help my circadian rhythm reset and acclimate much quicker. And, you know, I'm really treating this weight cut serious because I'm trying to minimize it. So really dialing in kind of like a carb cycle. Whenever I need that energy, I'll put those in there. At night, just vegetables, maybe some fruits, just to minimize the cut. Cause I don't want to get over there and something maybe my body's holding on to something that shouldn't be. So I'm just playing it safe.
It's interesting. You bring up our body's circadian rhythm. In a recent podcast, I was talking to two separate guys who were specialists. One was in sleep, Dr. Sean Stevenson, and another one was a human optimization sort of expert, Ben Greenfield. And I remember talking to them individually about this exact thing. Is there a sweet spot for quality of sleep? Dr. Sean Stevenson, who wrote a book on this, he's a proponent of saying that it's not necessarily an amount of sleep. A lot of people think that there's this magic hour. So I need to get 8 hours. I need to get 10 hours or 6 hours. He talks about his research that the circadian rhythm, the optimized amount of sleep is actually in this window of from 10 p.m. to, I think, give or take an hour or two, 3 a.m. and how quickly you could get into the REM state, the REM cycle. And then this sort of quality of sleep equates to much more than sort of like, I guess, shitty or average 8 hours of sleep. Are you familiar with any of this sort of stuff? Do you look at stuff like this when you're preparing for fights or just how you live?
Yeah, 100%. I figure this, me and my opponent, we're both physical specimens. We're both world-class athletes. So where can I find an edge? And, you know, it's through meditation. I have these things and my sleep is one of them. And I have a nutritionist, Tyler Whalen, but he's extremely knowledgeable in many areas. And I told him, you know, I'm a mouth snorer. I would snore with my mouth open. And my Whoop, I was sponsored by Whoop for a little bit, and I would get these readings that I was getting shitty sleep.
1% recovery. The Whoop data is interesting. Go on. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, for sure. That's why I got away from it. I don't know how accurate it was. Nothing, you know, great product, great company, but it was on it almost messing with my head to see that I have to spar someone very good today and you're telling me I'm 2% recovered. I don't even want to see this. Yeah. But so what Tyler put me on was, I believe his name's James Nestor. And I started taping my mouth shut, just a little surgical tape over my mouth, and it caused nasal breathing. And then I started noticing that I was having these like crazy, realistic, vivid dreams. I feel very rested when I do it. And that was something that I really took into account was, you know, sleep quality. And taping my mouth shut helped a lot.
Yeah, there's so many little things you bring. You're right. When you're at the highest level of any, especially martial arts, it is those little things, the small little areas of trying to attempt to find on how one could increase either their performance in the cage or just the day-to-day. Have you ever tried anything? Like, I'm open. The way I live my life, I'm not gonna ever stand and shut the door on any suggestion when it involves living healthy. It's kind of my passion as well. One of the things I do is I help people get healthy and stay healthy. Greenfield was talking about, this would have been a few years back, he was traveling the world a lot, and the jet lag component, when you fly out there to England, you know, crossing over multiple time zones, I was asking him in relation to what he was doing at the time, and he said one of the things that helps him is as soon as he gets off of a plane, he'll take his shoes off. He'll walk through the airport to the baggage claim barefoot. And then he was talking about, he was talking about science based on this, about grounding. Have you ever heard anything about this? And if not, do you have a routine from when you will get off of that plane, sort of things will click into gear for you like a system?
I don't have like science based like that, but I'm like you said, dude, I'm super into that, biohacks and living well and like just healthy living, healthy habits. And I recently started a company where I'm doing like online personal training, but it's more so than personal training, right? I want to help people develop sustainable habits. And, I came up with the name Hone In, HONIN, like hone in on your goals. And so that's something I'm really working on. I kind of put it to the side of like finding new clients until after this fight. But I love the concept of taking your shoes off, being grounded. And just like yourself, I'm always open to hearing what knowledgeable people have to say about that stuff. For me, since I've wrestled since I was 4 years old, always competitive wrestling. And anytime we traveled, the first thing we did was do a workout. We just called a shakeout, right? You get there and you get the travel off, you break a sweat. So for me, that's like, I'll do some shadow boxing, some jump rope, some grappling, stretch, a lot of yoga. And then to me, that's getting the travel off. So I think psychologically as well, how I frame that in my own head is like, okay, I'm going to get the travel off right here, But I want to listen to you said Greenfield talking.
Yeah,
about
I'll send you some links. He's literally he's in the Pacific Northwest. This guy's gone all in though. Everything from changing the filtration of the water that's coming onto his property by, I think he uses copper. Like he's gone full in. I haven't really paid attention to him lately in the last few years. So pardon if it's gone way to the left, but at the time this chat would have taken place, I think in 2019. But so when you get an opportunity, I mean, you're on an awesome win streak. We're talking about your main event coming up July 22nd at the O2, the 20th anniversary of Cage Warriors. Everyone watching or listening to this, if you're not in the know, do your research. Some of the best fighters come out of that organization internationally, and talk about they're sending you over there. You're on, I think, an 8-fight win streak. Your opponent Hardwick is on, I think, a 4-fight win streak. They're expecting that he's a hometown guy. They're expecting to bring an American over there and just to compete, not knowing that this is you, AKA guy, cutting your teeth with some of the best martial artists ever to walk the earth, DC, Khabib. Talk about the mindset when it was offered to you and what it's going to be when those cage doors shut and probably not a lot of Americans going to be there cheering for you.
What's crazy is I created this. Like, it seems that I'm the American coming over, but I believe it was like 2014, 2015. I was still in college and I knew that I had a knack for this fighting thing and I just needed to figure it out more. I was pretty young. I turned pro at 21 years old. I knew I had something for it. And my buddy, Frank Jones, good fighter. I was with him all the time and I would watch Conor McGregor. I was obsessed with Conor McGregor and I would watch him in Cage Warriors, like knock out Ivan Buchinger. I would watch these Cage Warriors fights. I loved Cage Warriors and no one even knew it. Right. And so I watched and then I watched Patty win. And then I was out at Jackson Week training and I came across one of my good friends to this day is Jack Shore. He was the champ, just continuously defending his belt. And I would always say, like, dang, what if I won that one day? What if I won that one day? And this is right when I'm being introduced to the law of attraction, basic, right? The Secret on Netflix is where I think a lot of people our age got into the law of attraction. And then you start doing your own research and you grow into what it is. But that's when I started like dream boards and manifesting. And I created this, I manifested this. And I wanted to go across. I've always wanted to go to Europe, and now the fight game's going to take me to Europe. Like, I'm living a childhood dream. So you can boo my ass to that cage and boo my ass out with it when I have a belt. I don't care, because I created this. This is my destiny. This is my night. And it just gives me so much freedom and confidence in the whole moment.
When you're preparing for, are you always going to prepare for a 5-rounder, no matter like main eventing or not? I mean, your camp is known for the work ethic, the cardio, the grappling. When that's removed, like when you have cardio, when you can weaponize cardio, talk about sort of the mental freedoms that gives you to focus on other skills or other tactics.
Yeah, that's when you focus and you drive that cardio and you know you can outlast.
Yeah.
Then you can switch to like a skill development frame of mind. Not so much like not going in there to not fatigue. Like, no, I'm going to make you so tired that you can't even clench a fist, and then I'm still going to be right here, whatever I need to do. If I need to wrestle, if I need to punch, if I need to kick, I have it all. But as far as like training for 5-round fights, I think it's very important to practice like useful methods. So if your fight is 3 rounds, I think it's very important to practice 3 rounds and sparring frequently. Like we have a cage room. A lot of gyms have a cage. Whatever that looks like for your gym, right? I think you need to do a mock run of the fight at least 2 times a week with like, some days you have competition you're better than, some days you have competition that's better than you, and some days it's very equal. And I think you need to feel all that, but you need to feel what your pace is. Because even for me at the beginning of this camp doing 5 rounds, I would like push, and then I'd have to like fade, push. And I found this like through this camp, I found my gradual, where's my meter? And it's different for 3 rounds, right? I have to push a pace. That's who I am. I can't just sit here and watch him, right? I have to be in his face, create action. That's where I do my best. And I found what that looks like for 5 rounds. And same thing for 3. It's more of a sprint, but I think you got to find what your pace is there.
When you're training, there's I was watching kind of like a doco series on your gym. I think one of these media companies from the Bay Area, went to AKA and did a feature on why so many champions come out of this one gym. And one of the videos I was recently watching, I was researching for this podcast, it was just an old clip, I think from 2019, of Luis Pena sparring another fighter, and they were striking, and they were in that cage room, and each fighter had a coach with them, and during the rounds, they're giving them advice as if it were a fight. Obviously, the intensity is not as high. And this question's for the non-fighters or the people out there listening who maybe have never been in the behind-the-scenes approach to build up to a fight. Within your gym, within AKA, talk about maybe how that comes to play. Like, who gets to choose the sparring partners for your camp? Are you in control of all that? Who gets to choose, maybe talk about the analytics of what goes into when you are sparring your stablemates, but also guys that have their own goals in their careers, like, because it could get pretty intense. Am I correct on that?
Oh, 100%. And so we'll start here. As far as, you don't really have say of who you spar. That's the coaches. You show up Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And if you're in fight camp, you don't have to, right? You don't have to do anything. It's how great do you want to be? Because we see what DC, Cain, Luke, Josh Thompson, John Fitch, we see what these guys do. And they're in the cage 2 to 3 times a week when they're in camp. So we know the blueprint.
I know you were in AMI, in 2016? Your amateur career started in 2016 or 2015? Yeah,
2015 or 16, around there.
Now you got to you got to share sweat with when DC was there, when Cain was there. Were you at AKA then?
Oh, dude, I got here. Yeah, I first got here, and just getting to AKA was the buildup of Khabib and Tony Ferguson. I was helping I was one of his top assistant wrestling coaches for his youth wrestling program when he fought Volkan Ozdemir. I was a part of that whole camp. I met Chris Camacho through that, like his whole camp, all his coaches. Cain coming back to fight Francis Ngannou, and then Cain circled back and was pretty much our full-time coach. The DC Stipe fights, those were all here. I was one of Khabib's top sparring partners for the Khabib McGregor fight, Dustin Poirier fight.
You got to learn. Wow. So that work ethic you were talking about the rounds and in the fight camp, and you could be as great as you want to be. So you have that data, that currency, that value of knowing what it takes. Man,
Let me tell you something.
talk about, yeah.
What the most important part for me about AK was, right? So listen, I was young. I was going to the University of Oklahoma and I was going to fight, and I had this coach and he was just a yes man. We'll fight anybody. So I took these early lumps, dude. I was like 22 years old and I'm 5-3. This guy's just throwing me to everybody. I'm fighting like LFA. Oh, before LFA was Legacy. I'm fighting Legacy's #1 contender in my pro debut. I'm like dumb fights from now that I know the business. So at 5-3, I lose a split decision in LFA and I make this decision, right? I said, I know I can be great at this, but I have to change my environment. So I come to AK. I'm living in a guy's living room for $600 a month. I have a free mattress in the living room, training 2 to 3 times a day. And I thought it was always going to be the training partners, right? Which it is. But I'll tell you the most important, impactful thing from AK was it humanized the guys that I thought were immortal. I used to see DC, Luke, Khabib, Cain, Josh Thompson, all these guys. And I'd be like, holy crap, like they're the best. They're the best. What do they do? What do they do? And then through time, oh, they're sore on Thursday. They're ran down on Thursday too. They have bad days too. I'm doing everything they're doing. So then it started turning into like, I would go spar Khabib and I would just get destroyed. And then I would go to my fight and I would do what he was doing to me, to these guys. And so then I'd come back and I wouldn't even take a week off. I'd come back and, okay, we're doing bike. Habib's bike says 65 RPMs. I'm going to try and make mine say 66. How fast can I make it go? DC's doing 5 rounds of bike today, or 7 rounds of bike today. Can I do it with you? Sweet, let's do it. So I just wanted to be a sponge. I wanted to see it all. I wanted to know what it felt like for this moment I'm in right now, you know? And being able to humanize my idols was the most valuable thing AK has done for me. And I say that with the utmost respect, right? I think they're incredible human beings, and I think to your listeners, people that aren't fighters, and that goes for anybody that's great. There's nothing special about them. They wake up the same way as you do. They brush their teeth, they put their pants on, they go do whatever their occupation is, and they face adversity. You know, you don't win every day. Some days you lose. How do you face that? That's going to tell you where you're going to go. How do you face that? And then also when you have days and you're the man, do you get your head too high? How do you handle that? Right.
What was it like? Were you able to spend time with a DC or a Khabib after they won? You spent time on their journey, getting them prepared for this event, but the reason for the question is I always think about this interview Buster Douglas gave, and boxing was my first love as a kid growing up in Northeast Ohio, a boxing town. And I'll never forget, years after Douglas retired, he was being interviewed and he was asked, you know, you're part of the biggest upset in boxing history. Did you know you were going to win that fight? And he says, me, my camp, and my team were the only ones on earth who knew we were going to win. He said the problem was they didn't prepare me to live after I won. And so I've never forgot that, because it was pretty resonating in anything that we do. We get so fixated on this journey of success, this outcome. We think it's this place, but it's, if we stop there and we don't think past that, all right, I'm going to get there. And when I do, what's that going to feel like? What's that going to be like? So did you get to kind of lean in on any of that with Khabib, with DC? Notice how that you said that they were humanized in the approach. Do you learn anything after they won?
Not so much Khabib. Khabib always heads right back to Dagestan after he fights. DC, yeah. There was a time, my second year out here at AK, I was living with Deron Wynn and Luis Pena in Gilroy. We were about like 2 miles from DC's house. And
who's cleaning the dishes in that house?
Yeah.
Who's cleaning the kitchen in that one? Yeah.
Me.
That's a reality show, Nate. Like, you should have. That's hilarious.
Gosh,
You, Deron, and Luis Pena, 3 total like different characters.
Different characters, dude. But we all took and gave from each other. You know, it was a good, you know. And Luis and I being the same weight, Gilroy is like 40 minutes from AK, and it's a little cheaper to live out there. DC lives out there. Cain lives out there. Some people make their way out there. Luis Pena and I would literally drive in the car together to go in the cage together and beat the shit out of each other, and then drive in the car back.
Talk about a very bonding experiences.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. It was crazy, but yeah, I would get to see DC, and what was so cool to see was after he beat Volkan Ozdemir, and we were actually in Tulsa for Tulsa Nationals coaching his youth wrestling team, and then we go see him after, and he's happy, he's excited, but that wasn't the end. That wasn't like, yes, the end goal of that camp was to win, but now it's just come back down to earth a little bit and let's do it again. That was kind of, DC was the only one I really got to spend time with after fights of the big names I'm around.
Are there any, without putting names on the story, could you share any sort of lessons you learned by being around, your teammates or fighters or friends of yours who went through a loss, and maybe you were able to, not necessarily what happened in the fight, how they lost, but sometimes because life is good when life is good, but it's in those losses, it's in that adversity, and without sounding cliche, it's when you're going through that struggle that in hindsight, it's like, oh shit, that's very important to go through because now I'm here because of that. Is there anything that stuck with you on maybe how a fighter or a friend dealt with the loss that you were either like, oh, that's a learning lesson, I'm not going to do that, or that's interesting how they dealt with this, put that in my notes? Yeah,
every fighter's different, because it means so much to us. This is our entire career. This isn't football or basketball where, okay, we lost on Tuesday, let's go get them on Thursday, guys. It's also not boxing in the sense of you catch one L in boxing, your whole career could be done. MMA is a beautiful sport, but like your whole world shuts down, dude. Everything that you just almost that you identify as is you just lost. So, and it's not like your team lost, like, no, another man was better than you. So it's a really tough pill to swallow. And I have a story of my own, right? So I was 21, still going to school. And my coach at the time was like, hey, Legacy's coming to Tulsa, Oklahoma, where I'm from. And they want you to fight on the main card on Access TV, Legacy, before it was LFA. And I was like, okay, sure. As the fighter, I got to say yes, right? And that's where good management and coaches come in, because this isn't the early 2000s where it's like tap out and affliction and I'll fight anyone, anywhere, anytime, right? You want to do this. It's a business. You want to do this properly. There's money to be made and you need to treat it as such. This was a horrible matchup for me early on. All I had was wrestling. I was just down to fight and I could wrestle. And this guy was like 32, been doing Muay Thai his whole life, decent brown belt jiu-jitsu. Just the time of the fight was not right. I sell like 200 tickets. I'm on TV. I get armbarred in the first like 2.5 minutes. And I was just utterly depressed. I had never felt depression until that day. And I just didn't know what to think. I didn't know who I was. I didn't what am I doing? Like, I know I'm better than this. It was so, it was tough to deal with, dude. A lot of soul searching, but like you said, you got to go through this type of stuff. Maybe I wouldn't be here today if I didn't deal with that, because there was a lot to deal with. And for me, it just shows me my resilience. Like, you can knock me down 8 times, but I'm gonna get up 9, right? I'm gonna be fine. And, I had an old wrestling coach that used to say, like, if I lost a match in high school, which my last 2 years of high school, I didn't really lose, but early on, if I lost, he would just say, hey, it's a tool in the toolbox. And now that I'm older, that resonates with me, right? Just take that loss and whatever it is and just face it, deal with it, talk with yourself, compartmentalize it, and now put that tool in your toolbox. Okay, it won't happen again.
Yeah, the lessons learned through those moments. Have you ever read much on Alan Watts?
Yeah, I was just listening to him. That's funny.
Oh man, Alan, we could go on and on, just him, but how important that guy is and was, and what he's meant to a lot of us for like mindset. You ever hear the bit he talks about anxiety and depression, and how he has this amazing perspective on that. He's not underselling depression or anxiety, but his approach is that they're kind of like it's wind. And when we experience these moments, whether it's a tangible moment like yourself going through an actual loss, or people who feel anxious and depressed maybe more frequently than that moment, he says that treat that as gusts of wind blowing through your body, temporarily using your body just for that moment, and not attach yourself with that feeling. And it really, when I meet, if I have friends that maybe are struggling, I always send them that video. And it's really a good way to kind of turn the page, a perspective. And then in your case, being able to turn the page and use it as a tool. I mean, you said it earlier, you're headlining this event, Cage Warriors, still one of my favorite promotions. Dan Hardy's fights in there. One of my favorite fighters, Tobias Arilla. He was on your card, but you told me, we spoke off air, that fight got pulled off. The wars of that promotion. I mean, who's to say that if you don't go through that early loss against that 32-year-old tough, gritty Muay Thai veteran when he armbarred you, say you win that fight, you can't say that you might be headlining this. It's that, that loss you learn from.
Yeah, it's the perfect storm, dude. And that's where I think it's, it's how you view things is how your reality of things, right? So I kind of like to, I don't like to live life through rose-colored glasses, but it's things happen for you, right? Just I think if you take that perspective, that's pretty powerful. Then the old like, oh, why did this happen to me? Like, no, this happened for you. You might not know it right now. You don't need to. Not expected to, but just trust that and keep going forward.
And one last thing, it's back to the fight, just because it's coming up so soon. With your weight cut, the fight's at 155. Are there issues? I mean, like, you're going to have to rely a bit on whatever hotel you're staying in, the work. Is the work going to be mostly done before you leave, or are you going to use that week? What's the way, like, how's the weight cut going to go?
So I have my system down and I work with, like I said, my nutritionist, Tyler Whalen. But so basically it's just we water load the week of, we cut all sodium on that Monday, cut all sodium. We're water loading. We're having, meals of maybe 3 to 4 ounces of chicken, unsalted, boiled, with 4 things of asparagus. And then 3 hours after that, I can have, before I do a workout, maybe a cup of, or a quarter or half cup of strawberries with 6 unsalted almonds, right? And then after that, we have these little nut balls we make. It's unsalted peanut butter with some 100% cocoa nibs and some coconut flakes, just something. And we're getting the fats back in us, and we're water loading 2 gallons a day. Well, you build up, you go a gallon and a half, 2 gallon, and then the day before weigh-in.
So this is speeding up the sweat and getting all the water out.
It's just water. It's taking all the sodium out, putting all the water in. Then I take uva ursa and dandelion root, which are natural cleansers. And so what that doing, a gallon of water is 8 pounds. So 2 gallons, 16 pounds. So if I can ideally have a water cut of 10 pounds, 8 pounds, that's wonderful, because I've put 16 pounds of water in my body. I have no sodium attaching that water to my muscles. I have uva ursa and dandelion root still flushing me out. And then we use sweet sweat. It opens your pores. Get in the sauna, and then you do a bath at 108 to 113 degrees. I start in the sauna until I can't bear the sauna, because your whole body is in the heat. So it's easy to overheat.
How long are we talking? How long is your threshold?
That first sit, maybe I can get 20, 25 minutes. I start getting antsy and moving. Keep in mind, you can't have any water. I've had one nutritionist say during the cut, I can have I can suck on a Jolly Rancher here and there, just for some sugars to the brain. And I've had another nutritionist do frozen blueberry. I get 1 frozen blueberry, and I like the frozen blueberries better. It doesn't really matter but that's life at that time. Sorry, I gotta let this dog in. But so then you're just cutting all that water. And, it can be tough. That last, I think when you get within 8, I know last fight, I was 7 over when we went to the sauna. I thought I had a good cut, and then I was still like 1.8 over. So I got in the bath, got to like 0.8 over, and then floated the rest through the night just to see where I could get, and then woke up and I was on weight.
I love hearing the systems, man. It's for me, watching the sport grow from 93 to where it is today, interviewing fighters since 2015, seeing the evolution of the sport, the science. That's where the biggest jumps lately is strength and conditioning, the nutrition, the water load, the rehydration, which we didn't get a chance to talk about. But man, it's great to hear that you have all these things dialed in. I'm excited to see you perform on the 22nd. I'll put all of your links in the show notes of this episode. Are there any? Do you have a site for Hone In at the moment?
I don't, not at the moment. I was just on the tail end of getting all that worked out, and I need to focus on the fight. But yeah, I have an Instagram for it right now. That's it.
Yeah, cool. I'll put that link in the show notes. And then, man, I'll get this up. When do you leave it? You leave on probably what, like the 15th?
I leave the 16th.
The 16th. Yeah, this will be up in the next few days. I'll send you the link. We're off the record now. Thanks for doing this, man. And I'm excited to see you fight. I'm excited